Governor Jan Brewer says this crisis is of the federal government's making. Meantime, United States Senator Jeff Sessions of Alabama has been warning for years that the administration's lax enforcement of the border and immigration law would result in this type of crisis, as now we are seeing all these children left at our southern border, brought into the country, primarily in Texas, then bused and flown into Arizona. Speaking again of Arizona, that state's Attorney General, Tom Horne, is Skyping in this morning. General Horne, welcome back to America's Forum.
It's good to be with you, JD.
So you and I have talked about this before, Tom. In your mind, is the Obama administration working to create the situation that Arizona finds itself in right now?
Well, they've done some pretty bizarre things. I mean, they caught people crossing the border in Texas, and they shipped them to Arizona and left them in a bus station. People that might have communicable diseases from other countries. We don't know if they've been inoculated. People who had no resources. The burden fell on charities or the state. And you know, if you catch people crossing the border, you're supposed to send them back to their country of origin, not send them to Arizona. That's a really bizarre thing that they did. And then we have the problem with these huge numbers of minors who, you know, the Obama administration apparently adopted the policy that if a minor who is not permitted to immigrate here makes it across the border, that they get to stay. They get to be sent to any family that they have here. Well, the word got out, and now we're looking at something like 90,000. And so that was a very bad consequence of the decision that was made. I saw the head of the Union of the Border Patrol Agents in Texas being interviewed, and he said that once they cross, then they look for a Border Patrol agent to surrender to because they know they won't be sent back. So he says that we used to chase them, now they chase us.
Yeah, because they get a notice to reappear, which, as I wrote in my book that's 10 years old now, is thought of as a notice to disappear. And as I understand it, some of the illegals, not really understanding English anyway, actually believe that notice is their sanction just to have free movement around the United States, which apparently it is, even though it allegedly is a notice to appear there before Immigration, Customs, and Enforcement. Tom, we see a situation where Homeland Security Secretary Jay Johnson is weighing in about this. Here's what he had to say, quote, "Almost all agree that a child who crossed the border illegally with their parents or in search of a father or a better life was not making an adult choice to break our laws and should be treated differently than adult violators of the law." Now, Tom, we've seen that another cabinet level official, our federal attorney general, is ready to supply these illegal children who have been brought here unlawfully, supply them with legal representation. And already, because of, quote, needs of compassion to house and clothe and feed these children, so many of them brought without family to the doorstep of the United States, there's already been a request of $2 billion in taxpayer money. You're familiar with the law, representing the state of Arizona as Attorney General. Does our federal Attorney General have the right to grant taxpayer-funded legal counsel to these illegal children?
Well, not that I know of. It appears to me that they should be sent back to their homes. They have no right to cross the border here. I can understand if there were a few cases, somebody wants to be compassionate, yeah, we'll send them to their relatives. But as usual, when something is done that indicates we're not going to enforce our laws, the word gets out. You know, in 1996, amnesty was given to 3 million illegals here. And the United States said that we're going to do it this one time, but we're not going to do it again. Well, no one believed that, and it operated as a giant magnet. So then we had 3 million became 11 million. Similarly here, where you decide, okay, if a minor, and the minor can be 17 years old, makes it across the border, we're not going to send them back. Word gets out, and pretty soon you've got masses of kids coming from Central America and from Mexico. And as I understand, the number is up to something like 90,000. So that indicates that's really not a good policy.
Well, Tom, you and I have often lamented the media bias in and around Phoenix. We won't mention specific newspapers, but you're familiar with what I'm talking about. It's interesting, you mentioned what's going on in Central America, and one of the newspapers in Central America lauding this policy of letting illegals in, and I guess offering, in effect, an invitation. Here's what La Prensa says. During their stay, in addition to accommodations and food, children receive English classes, play sports, and participated in targeted programs while immigration authorities contact their families. So, Tom, south of the border and in Central America, La Prensa is painting a picture almost of an ideal situation, while here in the United States, we are seeing pictures from different websites of all these people jammed into holding cells. And while most of the photos we see are of minors, you make the point that there are 17-year-olds that we're hearing reports of sexual contact and the importation of kids involved in gang activity. So why, again, the basic question is, why is the administration doing this? Is it to overload the system, to hasten that day when amnesty will be provided?
Well, if amnesty is given and these masses of people become citizens, it's expected they'll vote Democrat. So there could be a political motivation there.
Well, it's interesting, speaking of politics, on the Republican side of the aisle, Texas Junior Senator Ted Cruz has been outspoken on this issue. He says parents are motivated to send their kids to the U.S. because they know they will be given amnesty. White House spokesman Josh Earnest fired back at Cruz, saying, quote, that no one puts a lot of stock in the ability of Republican members of Congress to divine the thoughts and insights of children in Central American countries. In terms of the spin meter, Josh Earnest is going off the charts right there.
Well, I think, it's obvious what's happened. I mean, we've had an explosion of kids coming across the border, and the obvious reason for that is that word got out that they won't be sent back, that they'll be sent to relatives here in the United States, who themselves may well be here illegally, and so word gets out, so you get a massive migration. That's what happens when you indicate that you're not going to enforce your laws. You get a massive reaction.
Now, we've seen statements from Governor Jan Brewer in Arizona. We've heard her public pronouncements thus far. As Attorney General, have you been directed by the governor, or have you prepared something legally to try to put a stop to the federal government illegally dumping these huge numbers of illegal children within the boundaries of Arizona?
Yes, we are, as we speak, I have lawyers working very hard on what jurisdiction we have and what basis we have. I'm determined to do something about it, and I may be able to do something very soon, but I need to be sure that my legal research is done before I act.
So, in other words, you've got your attorneys taking a look at case law and precedent to prepare a case. Do you expect to march into federal district court sometime in the next couple of days to take legal action?
Well, I don't want to say what legal action we may take because it would be premature until our research is done. But I'm determined to do something. We need to stop the federal government from taking this bizarre approach where they catch people in one state crossing legally, and instead of sending them back, they send them to Arizona. It's like somebody has a weird sense of humor in the federal government. Yeah. And I'm determined if I can find a legal basis to do it, to do something about it. I might be able to do something as early as today, but I can't say what I would be doing until our legal research is done and I know exactly where I'm going.
Understood. Tom Horne, we thank you for your time. We thank you for Skyping in from Phoenix this morning. And our takeaway from you is that your attorneys are reviewing this, and as early as today, you could be taking legal action. We hope you'll come back in the days ahead to brief us on your fight to stop illegal dumping in Arizona, and we thank you for your time.
I'm delighted to come back whenever you want me, Jake.
You bet we'll have you back, General Horne. Thanks so much. So you hear it from Tom Horne, ready to go to court to stop the federal government. Arizona in trouble with the Obama administration for trying to enforce existing immigration law? We'd love to get your comments. Tweet them to us at Newsmax TV, #AmericasFork.